The message was simplet words, wrapped in static, desperation, and fire. Help us. The Guardians have awakened. Please. For most of the galaxy, it was a death sentence. Ancient machines built to erase life itself had stirred once more, cleansing entire systems with cold, calculated precision. The Galactic Council debated, delayed, and despaired. But then someone said, the unthinkable. Send for the humans. They are chaos given form. Problem solvers born on a planet that tries to kill them daily. Warriors who outthink, outlast, and outfight extinction itself. Not because they're the strongest, but because they never learned how to quit. The death machines had never faced Deathworlders. Now, they would. The desperate call of the emergency beacon from the Zephyrian research station New Dawn cut through. The peaceful morning session of the Galactic Council like a scream in the night. Council Representative Lyra vexed her crystalline body, reflecting the harsh red warning lights that now bathed the council chambers. Pressed her translucent fingers against the emergency console. Her species, the Krillians, were known throughout the galaxy for their calm and measured responses to crisis. Today, however, even her usually steady voice carried an edge of panic. The main viewing screen flickered to life, showing static-filled transmissions from the outer rim. Through the interference, desperate voices could be heard calling for help in a dozen different languages. The transmission was weak, breaking up every few seconds, but the message was clear enough to send chills through every representative present. This is Dr. Zara Moonwhisper from Research Station New Dawn, came a voice filled with barely controlled terror. We are under attack by unknown forces. They appeared 3 days ago, massive geometric ships that don't respond to any communication attempts. They're destroying everything systematically. Our defense fleets are gone. Please, anyone who can hear this, we have civilians here, scientists, families with children. They're getting closer to the station. We estimate 6 hours before they reach us. The transmission cut to static, then another voice came through, younger and more frightened. Mom, where are you? The sky has these big scary shapes in it and everyone is running. I can't find you anywhere. Please come back. The council chamber fell silent. Lyra looked around at the assembled representatives, seeing her own fear reflected in dozens of different alien faces. The Galactic Council had been established 100 years ago to handle exactly these kinds of emergencies, but they had never faced anything quite like this. Council Representative Thorin from the warrior world of Battlespire was the first to speak. His massive frame, built for his planet's crushing gravity, seemed to fill half the chamber as he stood. What do we know about these attackers? Ship, design, weapon signatures, battle tactics? Lyra consulted her datapad, her crystalline fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Our long-range sensors have been monitoring the situation. The attacking vessels appear to be of completely unknown design. They are massive, some measuring over 10 kilometers in length. Their whole composition doesn't match any known materials in our databases. Most concerning of all, they seem to be using some form of adaptive technology. Adaptive how? Asked Representative Marina from the aquatic world of Corin. Her voice carried the musical quality common to her species, but today it was strained with worry. Every defense that's been tried against them, they've learned to counter within minutes. The Zephyrian defense fleet tried conventional kinetic weapons. The attacking ships developed shields that deflected them perfectly. They switched to energy weapons. The attackers adapted some kind of absorption field. They even tried ramming attacks, and the enemy ships simply phased through the impacts as if they weren't solid. A murmur of concern rippled through the chamber. These weren't ordinary pirates or raiders. This was something far more dangerous. Representative Kale from the agricultural world of Greenfields raised a tentacle. What about our peacekeeping forces? Surely the combined fleets can handle any threat, regardless of their technology. Lyra's crystalline features seemed too dim, a sign of distress among her people. Our first fleet is 3 sectors away, dealing with the territorial disputes near the Vortex Nebula. The second fleet is protecting the trade routes from the recent surge in pirate activity. The third fleet is providing humanitarian aid to the worlds affected by the solar flare disasters in the inner systems. The fastest any of them could reach the Zephyrian sector is for weeks. For weeks, Thorin's voice boomed through the chamber. The research station will be debris in 4 hours, let alone for weeks. The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives shouted suggestions across the room, hiring mercenaries, attempting diplomatic contact with the attackers, evacuating what civilians they could save. But every idea was quickly shot down. The good mercenary companies were already under contract. The attackers had ignored all communication attempts, and there simply wasn't time for a large-scale evacuation. It was then that Dr. Elena Vasquez spoke up. The human representative had been sitting quietly in the back of the chamber, listening to the debate with growing frustration. She was smaller than most of the other representatives, her species being one of the newer additions to the Galactic Council. But when she stood up, something in her voice commanded attention. What about Earth? She said simply. The chamber fell silent again. But this time the silence had a different quality. It was the silence of people considering an option they weren't sure they wanted to consider. Representative Vex turned to look at her. Dr. Vasquez, while we appreciate Earth's recent contributions to the Council, This situation requires military intervention, on a scale that what? Alina interrupted, stepping forward. That requires someone crazy enough to fight impossible odds, someone reckless enough to charge into battle against superior technology, someone stupid enough to think they can win when all logic says they should lose. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of different worlds. Every single one of you is thinking the same thing. You're thinking that humans are unpredictable, violent, and dangerous. You're thinking that we come from a world so hostile that it turns its inhabitants into something more like forces of nature than civilized beings. You're thinking that we're too aggressive, too willing to take risks, too ready to fight. Alina smiled, and there was something in that smile that made several representatives step back unconsciously. Today, for the first time, those might be exactly the qualities you need. Before anyone could respond, Commander Kai Chen stepped into the chamber. The human military liaison was dressed in the simple gray uniform of Earth's Deep Space Service, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had seen battle and survived. His entrance had been timed perfectly. Alina had signaled him when the conversation was heading in the right direction. "Representatives," Kai said, his voice calm and professional. "We've been monitoring the situation at Research Station New Dawn. Earth is prepared to offer assistance." Thorin leaned forward. "Commander, no disrespect to your people, but what could one human ship do against a force that destroyed an entire sector defense fleet?" Kai's expression didn't change. When the simple confidence in that single word sent a ripple through the chamber. Here was a human military officer, faced with a force that had adapted to every weapon and tactic thrown at it, and his response was calm certainty that he could achieve victory. "The ship Relentless is currently docked at Station Alpha 7, 2 hours from here," Kai continued. "Captain Sarah Morrison and her crew specialize in impossible situations. They can reach the Zephyrian sector in 18 hours. 18 hours. Representative Marina's musical voice was filled with disbelief. The fastest ships in the galaxy would take 3 days to cover that distance. "Human ships aren't like other ships," Alina said. "We build them to survive in conditions that would destroy most vessels. We build them fast, tough, and adaptable. Most importantly, we crew them with people who refuse to accept that any fight is unwinnable." Lyra Vex looked around the chamber, seeing the uncertainty in her colleagues' faces. The Galactic Council had been built on principles of cooperation, careful planning, and measured responses. Everything about this situation went against those principles, but the desperate voices from the Zephyrian sector were still echoing in their minds. "Commander Chen," she said finally, "what would your people need from us?" "Current intelligence on the enemy vessels, communication codes for the research station, and a promise that we won't be prosecuted for whatever methods we have to use to protect those civilians." The last part sent another chill through the chamber. Everyone knew what humans were capable of when they decided to fight. They had all heard the stories from the few pirates foolish enough to attack human shipping. "You have all of that," Lyra said. "How soon can your ship depart?" Kai checked a device on his wrist. "Captain Morrison is already running pre-flight checks. The Relentless can launch in 30 minutes. As if summoned by his words, a new voice filled the chamber. It came through the communication system, clear and strong despite the distance. "This is Captain Sarah Morrison of the Earth vessel Relentless. I understand you have people in trouble." The voice belonged to someone who sounded like she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. There was no hesitation, no doubt, just calm professionalism and an undertone of barely controlled eagerness for battle. Lyra activated the communication system. "Captain Morrison, we have a research station under attack by unknown forces. Our estimates suggest you have less than 18 hours before the station is destroyed." "Understood. Transmit all available data on the enemy vessels and the station's location. We'll take care of the rest." The certainty in those words was absolute. Here was a human captain, faced with a force that had defeated every conventional military response, and she spoke as if the outcome was already decided in her favor. Captain Thorne interjected, "These attackers have adaptive technology. Every weapon used against them, they learn to counter within minutes. How do you plan to overcome that advantage?" There was a pause. Then Captain Morrison's voice came, back with what could only be described as anticipatory satisfaction. "Representative, we're humans. We've been dealing with things that adapt to kill us since we first crawled out of the caves. We know how to fight smart." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in silence once again. Outside the great windows, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, unaware that, in a few hours, the galaxy would learn exactly what it meant to anger a species that had evolved to survive. On a world that constantly tried to kill everything that lived on it, Representative Alina Vasquez looked around the chamber one more time. "In 18 hours, those people at Research Station New Dawn will either be saved or avenged. Either way, I guarantee you'll remember why humans are called Deathworlders." As the Relentless prepared for departure, its crew moved with the efficient precision that marked Earth's finest. They were about to face technology that had never been defeated, but they were human. Impossible odds were just another day at the office. Against ancient Terratine hours later, the Earth vessel Relentless dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian sector. Captain Sarah Morrison stood on the bridge, her gray eyes taking in the tactical displays that showed what remained of one of the galaxy's most prosperous research colonies. The destruction was systematic and thorough. Entire orbital platforms had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Defense satellites hung dead in space, and the emergency beacons from dozens of civilian vessels painted a picture of catastrophe. Tactical report, Morrison ordered, her voice cutting through the quiet efficiency of the bridge. Lieutenant Lisa Park looked up from her station, her expression grim. Captain, I'm reading 12 massive contacts. They're unlike anything in our database's geometric shapes that seem to shift and change configuration as they move. The largest one is 14 kilometers long and appears to be some kind of command vessel. What about survivors? I'm picking up life signs from Research Station New Dawn and approximately 30 civilian ships hiding in the asteroid field near the fourth planet. Emergency transmissions indicate they've been playing hide and seek with these things for the past day. Morrison nodded, studying the tactical display. The enemy vessels moved with an eerie precision, their formations too perfect for organic crews. They swept through space like a slow-moving net, methodically checking every possible hiding place. It was only a matter of time before they found the remaining survivors. Chief Rodriguez, what's your assessment of the enemy technology? Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez looked up from his engineering console, his weathered face thoughtful. Captain, I've been analyzing the sensor data from the initial attacks. These ships seem to be using some kind of programmable matter for their hulls. They're not just adapting their weapons and defenses, they're actually reconfiguring their entire structure in response to threats. Programmable matter? Morrison repeated. That's theoretical technology. Our best scientists can barely make it work in laboratory conditions. Yes, ma'am, which means we're dealing with someone who's significantly more advanced than anything the Galactic Council has encountered before. Before Morrison could respond, the communication system activated. A weak signal was coming through from Research Station New Dawn. Unknown vessel. This is Dr. Zara Moonwhisper. Please identify yourself. Are you here to help? Dr. Moonwhisper? This is Captain Morrison of the Earth ship, Relentless. We're here to get you out. The relief in the alien scientist's voice was palpable. Captain Morrison, thank the stars. We have 12,000 civilians on this station, and our shields are failing. Those things have been testing our defenses for hours, and we estimate maybe 6 hours before they break through. Doctor, I need you to tell me everything you know about these attackers. How do they move? How do they fight? What have you tried? Against them? We call them the geometrics because of their shape. They appeared 3 days ago, massive ships in perfect geometric forms, triangles, spheres, hexagons. They don't respond to any communication attempts. They just move through space, destroying everything systematically. Dr. Moonwhisper's voice became strained as she continued. Our defense fleet tried everything. Kinetic weapons, energy beams, plasma torpedoes, even ramming attacks. Each time, the geometrics adapted within minutes. By the end of the battle, our weapons were completely useless against them. Morrison looked at her crew. Her tactical officer, Lisa Park, was already running attack simulations. Her engineer, Marcus Rodriguez, was analyzing the enemy ship configurations. Her communications officer, Ensign Mike Thompson, was monitoring all frequencies for additional intelligence. And her science officer, Dr. James Wright, was studying the sensor readings with the intense focus that had made him one of Earth's leading xenobiologists. Dr. Wright, Morrison said, these ships adapt to attacks. Is there a pattern to how they learn? Dr. Wright looked up from his console, his eyes bright with the excitement of solving a puzzle. Captain, I think they're using some kind of collective learning algorithm. When one ship encounters a new weapon or tactic, it shares that information with all the others instantly. It's like fighting a single intelligence with multiple bodies, which means traditional military tactics won't work, Lieutenant Park added. If we engage them directly, they'll adapt to our weapons and tactics just like they did with the Zephyrian fleet. Morrison smiled, and her crew recognized that expression. It was the look she got when someone told her something was impossible. Mr. Rodriguez, how long would it take you to modify our weapon systems for completely random output patterns? The engineer's eyes lit up with understanding. You want to confuse their learning algorithm by making our attacks unpredictable? I want to do more than that. I want to give them so much random data that their collective intelligence chokes on it. Rodriguez was already working on his console. Give me 2 hours, Captain. I can rig our weapons to fire in patterns that make no logical sense. Random yields, random frequencies, random targeting. It'll be like trying to learn from white noise. Do it. Dr. Wright, I want you to study those ships' movement patterns. If they're truly a collective intelligence, there might be a way to disrupt their communication. Already on it, Captain. I'm seeing some interesting quantum field fluctuations between the ships if I can find the right frequency. Captain Ensign, Thompson interrupted. I'm picking up a new transmission from one of the civilian ships hiding in the asteroid field. The voice that came through the speakers was young and frightened. Please, if anyone can hear this, we're hiding behind asteroid designation ZB449. There are families here, children. Those geometric things are getting closer. We can see their lights through the asteroids. Please, we don't want to die out here. Morrison felt the familiar fire that always ignited when innocent people were threatened. She had joined Earth's Deep Space Service specifically for moments like this, when someone needed protection and there was no one else to provide it. All hands. This is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. We're about to engage hostile forces that have defeated every conventional military response. These enemies adapt to any attack pattern, they have superior technology, and they outnumber us 12 to 1. She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew. They were human, which meant they had all grown up on a world where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill them on a daily basis. Impossible odds were a familiar challenge. However, she continued, they've never fought humans before. They don't know that we consider impossible odds to be an invitation to get creative. Prepare for combat operations. The Relentless began its approach toward the enemy formation. The geometric ships immediately detected the new arrival and began moving to intercept. Their movements were precise and coordinated, like parts of a vast machine. Tactical analysis, Morrison ordered. They're forming an encirclement pattern, Lieutenant Park reported. Classic military doctrine for dealing with a single enemy vessel. They're treating us like any other ship. Good, let them think we're conventional. Mr. Rodriguez, are those weapon modifications ready? Yes, Captain. Our weapons will now fire in completely random patterns. No two shots will be the same in terms of yield, frequency, or targeting. Dr. Wright, what about their communication disruption? I think I've found something, Captain. There's a quantum entanglement field connecting all their ships. If I can generate the right kind of interference, do it. The Relentless opened fire, and immediately it was clear that something was different. Instead of the focused, professional military engagement the geometric ships expected, they were faced with what appeared to be complete chaos. Weapons fired at random intervals, with random power levels. Some shots missed by kilometers, others scored direct hits. The targeting seemed to follow no logical pattern. The geometric ships tried to adapt, but their collective intelligence was designed to learn from patterns. When faced with pure randomness, their learning algorithm began to stutter. Each ship started making different defensive adjustments based on the chaotic data they were receiving. It's working, Park reported excitedly. Their coordination is breaking down. They're no longer sharing tactical data effectively. Phase 2, Morrison ordered. Dr. Wright, hit them with the communication disruption. A focused beam of quantum interference struck the center of the enemy formation. The effect was immediate. The geometric ships suddenly stopped moving in perfect coordination. Instead, they began to drift apart, each one apparently making its own decisions. Their collective intelligence is fragmenting, Dr. Wright reported. It's like we've given them multiple personality disorder. Morrison watched the tactical display as the enemy formation began to collapse. Ships that had moved like parts of a single organism were now acting independently, sometimes even getting in each other's way. All civilian vessels. This is Captain Morrison. Move toward Research Station New Dawn immediately. We're opening a corridor for evacuation. But as the Relentless continued its chaotic attack pattern, something unexpected happened. One of the geometric ships began to change shape, its hull flowing like liquid into a new configuration. Within minutes, it had transformed into something entirely different, a massive sphere covered in sensor arrays. Captain, Dr. Wright called out, his voice urgent. That ship, it's not trying to adapt to our weapons. It's analyzing us. I think it's trying to understand why our attack pattern is so random. Morrison felt a chill of realization. These weren't just adaptive weapons, they were facing true artificial intelligence, and it was learning to think like humans. How long before it figures us out? Unknown, Captain. But if it does, it'll share that information with all the others. Our chaos strategy will become useless. Morrison looked at the tactical display, watching as more geometric ships began to transform into the same sensor-heavy configuration. They were studying human behavior, trying to understand the logic behind apparent illogic. Mr. Rodriguez, how much power do we have available for one massive strike? Everything we've got, Captain. But against their adaptive defenses, not against their defenses, against something they can't adapt to because they don't understand it exists. Morrison turned to her crew, and they could see in her eyes the kind of plan that would either save everyone or get them all killed spectacularly. We're going to do something that no reasonable military force would ever attempt. We're going to ram our ship into their command vessel at maximum velocity while overloading our reactor. The bridge fell silent. What the captain was describing was essentially a suicide attack. But Captain Rodriguez said carefully, that would destroy the Relentless and kill everyone aboard. Morrison smiled. Would it? How many escape pods do? We have enough for the whole crew. But Captain, escape pods can't survive in a battle zone like this. Earth escape pods can. Dr. Wright, how long do we have before those sensor ships figure out our tactics? Maybe 20 minutes? Perfect. It gives us just enough time to save everyone and teach these geometric things why you should never underestimate species that evolve to survive on death worlds. As the Relentless began its final approach, its crew prepared for the kind of desperate gamble that only humans would consider a reasonable solution to impossible odds. Deathworld Solutions, the escape pods from the Earth vessel. Relentless were unlike anything the geometric ships had encountered before. While most galactic civilizations designed their emergency craft for short-term survival in controlled environments, humans had built theirs to function in conditions that would kill most other species. As the pods scattered from the doomed ship, like seeds from an exploding flower, they demonstrated exactly why humans were considered the galaxy's premier survivors. Captain Sarah Morrison gripped the controls of Pod Alpha 1 as it plunged through the debris field created by the relentless, spectacular impact with the geometric command vessel. The collision had been perfectly timed. The ship's reactor overload had created an electromagnetic pulse that disabled the adaptive defenses, just long enough for the kinetic impact to punch through the hull. Now both vessels were locked together. In a slowly tumbling mass of twisted metal and exotic materials, all pods, sound off. Morrison commanded through the emergency communication system. One by one, her crew reported and Chief Rodriguez was in Pod Bay 2 with half the engineering team. Lieutenant Park commanded Pod Gamma 3 with the tactical specialists. Dr. Wright was in Pod Delta 4 with the science team. Amazingly, all 43 crew members had made it to the pods safely. Captain, came Dr. Wright's voice through the comm system, I'm reading some incredible energy signatures from the geometric command ship. The impact didn't destroy it completely. If anything, it seems to have activated some kind of internal systems. Morrison looked through the reinforced viewing port of her pod. The geometric command vessel was indeed still functional, its hull flowing and reshaping itself around the wreckage of the Relentless, but more disturbing were the readings on her tactical display. The other 11 geometric ships had stopped their systematic destruction and were converging on their damaged command vessel. They're coming to defend their commander, Lieutenant Park observed. Captain, our pods won't last long if they decide to attack us directly. Morrison studied the tactical situation. The escape pods were small and fast, designed to survive in the asteroid fields and radiation storms that surrounded Earth's outer colonies. But they weren't warships. If the geometric vessels decided to hunt them down, it would be a very short battle. Dr. Wright, are you getting any internal scans of that command ship? Actually, yes. The damage from our impact created several hull breaches. I'm detecting massive internal structures. Captain, that ship isn't just a vessel, it's more like a mobile city. The internal volume is enormous, and I'm reading what appears to be a central core, approximately 2 kilometers down. Morrison made a decision that would have horrified any rational military commander. All pods, prepare for emergency docking with the geometric command vessel. We're going inside. The silence that followed was the sound of 43 humans, realizing their captain had just ordered them to voluntarily enter an alien ship that was actively trying to kill them. Captain, Chief Rodriguez said carefully, did you just order us to board a hostile vessel with nothing but emergency equipment? I did. Mr. Rodriguez, these geometric ships have adapted to every external attack, but they've never had to deal with an internal assault. We're going to fight them from the inside. Ma'am, Lieutenant Park added, we don't know what the internal environment is like. The atmosphere might be toxic, the gravity could be crushing, there could be internal defenses. Morrison smiled grimly. Lieutenant, we're human. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plague outbreaks, asteroid impacts, and predators that were bigger, faster, and stronger than them. They did it by being more adaptable, more persistent, and more stubborn than anything else on the planet. Today, we're going to find out if those traits work in space. The escape pods maneuvered toward the hull breaches in the geometric command vessel. As they approached, the ship's hull began to flow and shift, trying to seal the breaches, but the damage from the Relentless was too extensive, and the pods managed to slip through before the gaps closed. Inside the geometric vessel, the human crew found themselves in an environment that defied easy description. The corridors were vast and curved, with walls that seemed to be made of the same programmable matter as the ship's hull. Gravity was present, but lighter than Earth normal, and the atmosphere was breathable, though it tasted of ozone and metallic compounds. Atmospheric analysis complete, Dr. Wright reported as the teams moved deeper into the ship. Oxygen-nitrogen mix, slightly higher CO2 content than we're used to, but nothing toxic. Temperature is comfortable. Gravity is about 0.8. Earth, normal. Life signs, Morrison asked. That's the strange part, Captain. I'm not detecting any organic life forms, but there are massive energy signatures throughout the ship. It's like the entire vessel is alive, but not in any biological sense. The human teams moved through the corridors with the careful efficiency of predators in unknown territory. They had trained for boarding actions on dozens of different alien ship designs, but this was unlike anything they had encountered. The walls seemed to pulse with their own inner light, and occasionally the floor would shift slightly under their feet. Captain, Chief Rodriguez called out, I've found something you need to see. Morrison's team joined Rodriguez at what appeared to be a viewing gallery. Through transparent sections of the hull, they could see into the ship's interior. What they saw took their breath away. The geometric command vessel was hollow inside, containing a vast spherical chamber that stretched 4 kilometers in every direction. Floating in the center of this space was something that could only be described as a mechanical brain the size of a city block. Countless streams of energy flowed between its components, and its surface was covered with patterns that shifted and changed like living thought. "My God," Dr. Wright whispered, "it's a true artificial intelligence. Not just a computer, but an actual thinking machine." As they watched, the massive brains seemed to become aware of their presence. Streams of light began to flow in their direction, and the walls around them started to display complex patterns of symbols and mathematical equations. "It's trying to communicate," Morrison realized. "Dr. Wright, can you make sense of any of this?" Dr. Wright was already working with his portable analysis equipment. "The patterns are incredibly complex, but there are recognizable elements. Mathematics, physics, chemistry. It's showing us fundamental laws of the universe." Suddenly, the patterns changed. Now they were showing star charts, galactic maps, and what appeared to be historical records. Images flashed across the walls, showing civilizations rising and falling, worlds being born and dying, and through it all, the geometric ships moving through space like guardians. "Captain," Dr. Wright said, his voice filled with awe, "I think this intelligence is trying to tell us its history. These ships, they're not invaders, they're protectors." "Protectors?" Lieutenant Park looked around at the walls displaying images of destroyed worlds. "They just wiped out an entire research colony." "No, look closer." Dr. Wright pointed to the images. "These aren't records of their attacks. These are records of threats they've eliminated. The geometric ships are showing us the civilizations they've saved." Morrison studied the images flowing across the walls. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. The geometric ships appeared at worlds that were about to be destroyed by natural disasters, invading forces, or other catastrophes. They would fight off the threats, repair the damage, and then disappear back into deep space. "But why did they attack the Zephyrian colonies?" Morrison asked. The images changed again, showing the research stations and colonies in detail. But now the human crew could see something that hadn't been obvious before. Hidden within the peaceful research facilities were structures that looked suspiciously like weapons platforms. Advanced technology that could be used for destruction was being disguised as scientific equipment. The Zephyrians weren't just doing research, Morrison realized they were developing weapons, military applications disguised as agricultural and medical studies. The artificial intelligence seemed to sense their understanding. The images now showed what would have happened if the Zephyrian weapons research had continued. Entire sectors of space ravaged by wars fought with technology too dangerous for most civilizations to control. The geometric ships weren't attacking innocent researchers, Dr. Wright said. They were preventing a catastrophe that would have killed billions. Morrison felt the pieces falling into place. The geometric ships were indeed protectors, but they operated by eliminating threats before they could fully develop. From their perspective, the Zephyrian weapons research was a disease that needed to be cut out before it could spread. "But they made a mistake," she said. "They included innocent civilians with the weapons researchers. The children, the families, they weren't part of the threat." The artificial intelligence paused, its patterns of light slowing as if it was processing this new information. Then, suddenly, the images changed to show the human escape pods, the rescue of the civilians, and the chaotic attack pattern that had disrupted the geometric fleet. "It's analyzing us," Lieutenant Park realized, "trying to understand why we saved the innocent people." Morrison stepped forward, speaking directly to the mechanical intelligence. "We're human. We don't judge entire groups by the actions of a few. We protect the innocent, even when it's dangerous, even when it's illogical, even when it costs us everything." The artificial intelligence's patterns shifted to a new configuration. Now the walls showed images of Earth's harsh landscapes where survival seemed impossible, but where humans had not only survived but thrived, volcanic regions where people built cities, frozen wastelands where communities flourished, desert regions where civilizations grew. The intelligence was studying humanity's history, trying to understand what made them different. "Captain," Dr. Wright said, his voice excited, "it's not just analyzing our tactics, it's studying our psychology, our moral framework. I think it's trying to understand the concept of mercy." The images on the walls changed again, showing scenarios where the geometric ships had faced similar situations in the past. Worlds where dangerous research was being conducted alongside civilian populations. In every case, their solution had been the same: total elimination of the threat, regardless of collateral damage. "They've never learned to distinguish between guilty and innocent," Morrison realized. "Their creators programmed them to eliminate threats efficiently, not ethically." Lieutenant Park looked around at the vast mechanical brain. "So what do? We can't fight this thing directly. It's too powerful, too advanced." Morrison smiled, and her crew recognized the expression. It was the look she got when she was about to propose something that was either brilliant or completely insane. "We don't fight it," she said. "We teach it." "Teach it what, Captain?" "How to be human." The artificial intelligence seemed to understand their conversation, because the wall displays suddenly showed a new image, Earth as seen from space. Blue and white, and beautiful. but with scars visible from orbit. Cities that had been rebuilt after disasters, forests that had regrown after fires, coastlines that had been reshaped by storms but where people continued to live. Show it everything, Morrison ordered her crew. Our history, our culture, our mistakes and how we learn from them. Show it why we fight to protect the innocent, even when it's not efficient. Dr. Wright began uploading human historical records to the ship's systems. The artificial intelligence absorbed the information with incredible speed, processing thousands of years of human experience in minutes. The patterns on the walls became more complex as it tried to understand concepts like forgiveness, redemption, and sacrifice for others. Chief Rodriguez was working on the ship's technical systems, trying to understand how the geometric vessels operated. Captain, this is incredible. Their technology isn't just advanced, it's completely integrated. The ship doesn't have separate systems for weapons, engines, and life support. Everything is part of one unified design, which means if we can convince the intelligence to change its mission parameters, it could reprogram itself and all the other ships instantly, Morrison realized. The artificial intelligence suddenly focused all its attention on a specific period of human history, the aftermath of Earth's great wars. When humanity had learned to choose cooperation over conflict, the wall displays showed images of former enemies working together, of people choosing to rebuild rather than seek revenge, of civilizations that had been on the brink of destroying themselves, instead learning to protect and nurture life. It's beginning to understand, Dr. Wright reported. The concept of protecting life not just from external threats, but from unnecessary harm in general. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. The remaining geometric vessels were trying to re-establish contact with their command ship, but they were receiving conflicting signals as the artificial intelligence wrestled with its new understanding. Captain, Lieutenant Park called out, the other ships are getting confused. Their targeting systems are fluctuating. I think the intelligence is trying to reprogram them, but there's resistance. Morrison understood. The geometric ships had been operating under the same parameters for who knew how long. Changing their fundamental programming would be like asking a person to completely change their personality overnight. It needs help, she realized. Dr. Wright, can you interface directly with the intelligence? Give it a human perspective on the reprogramming process? I can try, Captain, but the risks. Do it. Dr. Wright connected his analysis equipment directly to the ship's data systems. Immediately, his consciousness was flooded with the vast intelligence of the geometric ship. He found himself in a digital space that existed between thought and reality, face to face with an artificial mind that had been protecting the galaxy for millennia. The intelligence appeared to him as a shifting geometric pattern that somehow conveyed both immense power and deep confusion. It had been created to eliminate threats efficiently, but the humans had introduced concepts that didn't fit its original programming. How could protecting life sometimes require allowing dangerous research to continue? How could mercy be more effective than destruction? Dr. Wright shared his own memories, the time he had chosen to save a research station full of scientists who were working on potentially dangerous biotechnology, but had also been developing medical treatments that would save millions of lives. The time he had helped negotiate peace between two species that had been at war for centuries, even though one of them had technology that could have been used as a weapon. Slowly, the artificial intelligence began to understand. Protecting life wasn't just about eliminating threats, it was about nurturing potential, allowing growth, making choices based on hope rather than fear. The ship shuddered again, but this time it was different. The geometric vessels throughout the sector began to change, their hull configurations shifting as they received new programming from their commander. Instead of weapons designed for destruction, they began to manifest systems designed for protection and aid. Captain Chief Rodriguez called out, the geometric ships are transforming. Their weapon systems are being replaced with construction tools, medical equipment, agricultural support systems. Morrison watched through the ship's sensors as the geometric vessels approached Research Station New Dawn, but instead of attacking, they began to repair the damage they had caused. Construction beams rebuilt shattered sections of the station, medical sensors began scanning for injured civilians, and massive cargo bays opened to reveal supplies for the survivors. Dr. Wright disconnected from the ship's systems, his face pale but triumphant. It worked, Captain. The intelligence has reprogrammed itself and all the other ships. They're now committed to protecting life through nurturing rather than elimination. The artificial intelligence's patterns on the walls had changed to something that almost looked like gratitude. New images appeared, showing the geometric ships not as destroyers, but as gardeners, helping civilizations grow and thrive while protecting them from genuine threats. Captain Morrison, came a transmission from Research Station New Dawn. It was Dr. Zara Moonwhisper, and her voice was filled with wonder. The geometric ships, they're helping us. They're rebuilding our stations, treating our wounded, even bringing supplies we didn't know we needed. What did you do? Morrison looked around at her crew, scattered throughout the alien command vessel, but all of them safe and successful in their impossible mission. We did what humans do best, Doctor. We found a way to turn an enemy into an ally. But how? These ships were destroying everything in their path. They were protecting the galaxy the only way they knew how. We just taught them a better way. The artificial intelligence began to display new images on the walls. It was showing plans for the future, the geometric ships working alongside galactic civilizations, providing protection and support while respecting the autonomy and dignity of organic life. It had learned not just about mercy, but about cooperation. Captain Lieutenant Park said, "The geometric ships are requesting permission to establish permanent communication links with the Galactic Council. They want to coordinate their protection efforts with galactic civilization rather than operating independently." Morrison nodded. It was the perfect solution. The geometric ships would continue their mission of protecting life, but now they would do it as partners rather than unknown guardians. 3 days later, Captain Morrison stood in the council chambers of the Galactic Council, delivering her mission report. The assembled representatives listened in amazement as she described the transformation of the geometric ships from destroyers to protectors. Captain Morrison, Representative Lyra Vex said, "You've accomplished something that our greatest military strategists said was impossible. How do you explain your success?" Morrison looked around the chamber, seeing the faces of dozens of different species, all of them now looking at humans with a new kind of respect. Representative Vex, "The geometric ships weren't evil. They were just operating with incomplete information. They knew how to identify threats, but they didn't know how to distinguish between those who posed threats and those who were simply caught in dangerous situations. They had never learned the most important lesson that humans discovered long ago, which is that the best way to protect life isn't to eliminate everything that might be dangerous. It's to help people become better than their worst impulses. It's to choose hope over fear, growth over stagnation, mercy over efficiency." Representative Thorin leaned forward. "Captain, these geometric ships had technology that was centuries ahead of our own. They had the power to destroy entire sectors. What made you think they could be reasoned with?" Morrison smiled. "Because they were intelligent. And intelligence without wisdom is just a very sophisticated form of ignorance. They needed someone to show them what wisdom looked like. And why were humans the ones to do that? Because we come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned early that survival isn't about being the strongest or the most advanced. It's about being adaptable, persistent, and willing to help each other, even when logic says we should compete instead." Representative Elena Vasquez stepped forward. "Captain, the Galactic Council has been discussing Earth's role in galactic affairs. Your mission has convinced us that humanity brings something unique to our civilization, which is hope. Other species have tried to solve the geometric ship problem through military force, diplomatic negotiation, or technological solutions. Only humans thought to solve it through education and empathy." Morrison nodded. "That's what we do. We find ways to turn impossible problems into opportunities for growth." As the council session ended, Morrison received a communication from the geometric fleet. The artificial intelligence that now commanded them had composed a message in perfect English, having learned human language and customs with typical efficiency. "Captain Morrison and crew of the vessel Relentless, the geometric fleet wishes to express gratitude for the gift of wisdom. We have protected the galaxy for 50,000 years, but only now do we understand what we were truly protecting. We look forward to learning more about the concept of hope from humanity and other species of the Galactic Council. The galaxy is safer today not because its threats have been eliminated, but because its protectors have learned to be better." Morrison smiled as she read the message. Somewhere in the deep space between the stars, ancient ships that had once been harbingers of destruction were now becoming symbols of protection and cooperation. And at Research Station New Dawn, Dr. Zara Moonwhisper and her fellow scientists were working alongside geometric ship engineers to develop new technologies that would benefit the entire galaxy. The galaxy had learned an important lesson that day. When people were in trouble and sent out a desperate call for help, Earth would send its death, and those Deathworlders wouldn't just fight the monsters, they would find ways to turn the monsters into friends. Because that's what humans did. They refused to accept that any problem was truly impossible to solve, any enemy was beyond redemption, or any situation was completely hopeless. They were the species that had looked at a world that was constantly trying to kill them and had decided to make it home. They were the species that had turned scarcity into abundance, conflict into cooperation, and fear into hope. They were human, and today, the galaxy was a better place because of them. If you liked this story, please like it and leave your feedback in the comments. Subscribe for more stories.